So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the March edition of the 2022 GLASE webinar series. We will be having a roundtable today headed by representatives from 3 utility companies. So my name is Haley Rylander. I'm the Extension Support Specialist with GLASE, the Greenhouse Lighting and Systems Engineering Consortium. And before we start today, I would like to extend a huge thanks to our current GLASE industry and CEA members for their support. You can see all of their logos there. It's because of them that we can promote these activities and offer them to a wide range of audiences. Next slide. I would also like to highlight GLASE's new individual membership option, which is an affordable way for anyone to be a part of GLASE. For an annual fee, you can have access to all recordings of past short courses, free admission to future short courses, and access to articles and online tools on the GLASE website. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to GLASE's Executive Director, Erico Matos, who will be leading today's panel and introducing the panelists.
Thank you so much, Haley. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our Utility Companies Roundtable. It is great to see you back here again on our CEA webinar series from GLASE. Today we have 3 very interesting guests to talk about opportunities related to utility companies. So how greenhouse growers and technology manufacturers, lighting, HVAC, anything that is related to energy use efficiency can benefit from the ag programs at utility companies. So our 3 guest speakers today are Lucas Wachob from NYSEG, Andrew Gustafson from TRC, and Martin Hu from National Grid. Pretty soon we're going to be hearing from them. Each one of them will have some initial minutes for the introduction. We're going to go through the slides. We're going to hear more specific from each one of them, their companies and what they're doing, all the cool things that those companies are doing. Like Haley said, my name is Erico Matos. I've been working as the Executive Director of the Greenhouse Lighting and Systems Engineering Consortium for the past 4 years. And really excited to be able to be promoting one more of those education activities and help to bring more information to the industry. Our structure for today for the roundtable, after the initial introductions, we're going to go for a guided discussion where I'll be talking to our 3 guests about why is now a good moment to apply for energy rebate programs, and that's very interesting hearing. How to maximize the rebates and incentives opportunities if you're a grower, and what are the growers and manufacturers considerations when it comes to applying for those rebate programs and incentive programs. We're going to take about 20 minutes for that, and then we'll open for a Q&A from the audience. So we're going to have 20 minutes to discuss your questions. So for all of you joining the webinar today, please use the Q&A box below your Zoom software. So you're going to be reading the questions from there. So you can, please feel free to submit the questions while you go through the introduction and the guided discussion. So at the end, we're just going to be tackling those questions one by one. No further ado, I'll turn the word to our first panelist, which is Lucas Wachob from NYSEG. Lucas?
Thanks, Erico. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Yeah, glad to be here. My name is Lucas Wachob. I'm with Franklin Energy. We represent the NYSEG and RG&E rebate programs. So next slide, please, Erico. Franklin Energy, as a program implementer, is a third-party rebate engineering company that offers this rebate program on behalf of the utilities. This slide just shows our contact information, how you can reach us, our primary contacts, and the website, web addresses for how to reach the program. We'll be going through a little bit about what the rebate program includes. So next slide, please. This is a service area map of the RG&E rebate, or RG&E and NYSEG territories. Most people on the call know who the rebate companies are, but just pointing out the territory for both gas and electric, NYSEG and RG&Es being the darker colors on the screen. And then the lighter colors being offered primarily by National Grid, who's also on the call today too. So this map serves that purpose as well. Next slide, please. A little bit about myself. I am the technical manager for the team. We have a team of engineers who process rebate applications, who do QA, QC, and will do some intro energy audits as well. I've been in the energy efficiency industry for a little over 10 years now in various roles, and with Franklin Energy for just over 3 years. I'm located in the Finger Lakes region of New York. I live in an agricultural district, and personally, I'll add that I'm a gardener, so I have a little bit of a vested interest in the content today.
Lucas, can you just clarify for the audience, what is the QA/QC that you mentioned?
Yes, QA, QC, quality assurance, quality control. We evaluate rebate applications for technical accuracy. We look at savings. We report savings to the state, and we want to do that accurately, and we cut the checks.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much, Lucas.
Of course. And just at a glance, I'll talk about rebates since that's part of the content today. I know that the grid program is going to be similar, so maybe some of this serves dual purposes here. But rebates from NYSEG and RG&E come in one of two paths: a prescriptive rebate or a custom rebate. And it's worth mentioning that prescriptive rebates are all predetermined dollar amounts, per unit or per horsepower, depending on the equipment type. And these are all listed online. Relevant to some of the folks on the call today, we have a catalog just for agricultural equipment that includes circulation fans and ventilation fans for greenhouses. And we also have a new enhanced rebate for small businesses for lighting, and this pertains to area lighting, LEDs for illumination. Now, if we're talking about grow lighting, that's going to fall into our custom category. Custom is anything that's not prescriptive. Custom projects are paid on a performance basis, and our rates are 20 cents per kWh. So the implication there is that the savings should be quantified before construction begins and approved by the program before construction begins. We'll write a reservation letter that says we agree to this rebate amount based on the savings we've calculated. Go ahead and install your project, and we'll pay the check at the end. Prescriptive rebates do not require pre-approval. You can apply for those after you've installed the equipment. So that only pertains to custom. And like I mentioned, grow lights and almost everything pertaining to greenhouses will likely fall into the custom category.
Perfect. Thanks, Lucas. And I think one of the things I want to go back later, let's go through the other introductions, is this pre-approval. So that's interesting for the audience to understand.
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about that more.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. All right.
Oh, yeah. My last slide here is just a list of resources. If you need access to these slides, please reach out to me directly. My contact information was on a previous slide. So feel free to go back and watch the recording, reach out to me directly, reach out to the program. I can share any and all of this with you. Franklin Energy offers rebates for electronic vehicles, which some might be interested in. There's beyond our program, there's economic development funding from the utility, which can cover infrastructure costs. And not offered by the utility, but might be relevant to the conversation. I know that NYSERDA offers free energy audits to help identify some of these opportunities. So I just wanted to throw some resources on here for the folks on the call today.
Thanks, Lucas.
Of course.
All right, changing gears now. Let's go with Andrew Gustafson out of California.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Great. My name is Andrew Gustafson. I work for TRC. Our company has a number of programs with utilities around the country. But for the purpose of today's call, I'm going to be focusing on our agricultural program, which is with Pacific Gas and Electric out here in California. PG&E territory is fairly large in California. It's one of the largest utilities out there. It's goes all the way up to Northern California, south, all through the valley where a lot of the agricultural hub is in California, down south past Bakersfield. So pretty large territory there. So go ahead to the next slide, please. Real quick, also quick intro on myself. I have an engineering background. I have 15 years of experience with energy efficiency programs. And currently I am the program manager on this program we're talking about here with PG&E. So the TRCs, we call it the ASAP program. It stands for Agricultural Energy Savings Action Plan. Similar to the prior program that was being discussed, we offer incentives, prescriptive rebates, and financing options for customers for energy savings type projects. And that could be for retrofitting existing equipment, replacing, even added load, new construction type projects could all fall into under a program. We comprehensively serve all the sectors within the PG&E, subsectors within the agricultural main sector of PG&E. Some of those main ones are listed down below. We like to say we have a streamlined service and offering, so we're kind of like a one-stop shop for customers to come to and be able to help them through the entire incentive process, and whether it's incentives with financing or without. There's also a component of our program that is related to demand side management. So that could be like demand response programs and other sort of similar programs that help integrate energy efficiency with those demand type offerings. So yeah, major subsectors are shown down below, includes crop production. That could be pumping outside of just crops, a lot of the water movement measures related to that. CEA, controlled environmental agriculture, or horticultural, similar to like the greenhouse topic today. We also work with breweries, wineries, and distilleries, and then dairy, livestock, things like that. So what I want to mention for greenhouse specifically, and our program does offer electric and gas incentives since the utility offers both there. So any measures that could fall under either of those could be eligible for incentives. Common greenhouse measures, could be like LED grow lighting, dimming controls, often with the lighting, as well as a dehumidification HVAC, supplemental heat type measures. Another point to mention is just like, in addition to retrofits, like I mentioned, it could be the added load type thing. And the whole purpose of the programs are that we're incentivizing customers to go with equipment that's more efficient than they were originally considering or have in place. So there's other programs, third-party programs in California that follow the same California CPUC rules and policies, so that are similar to our program being discussed here. So we go ahead to the next slide, please. So ASAP services, some of the main services that we'll do is large portion of our team is engineers. So we'll go out there to a site, meet with a customer, do detailed technical studies. Often customers, we're going in, customers that might have some interest, but you don't really know what they want to do. So we'll go in there, do energy audit, try to identify opportunities that make sense not just for incentives, but also make sense for the customer, that it can benefit them. So we'll quantify the energy savings through engineering analysis and the associated incentives, and ultimately the payback tied to those measures as well. We also do the savings verification. So once the project's installed, we verify the savings, and those M&V plans, measurement verification plans, are tailored to specific measure requirements on there. Financial incentives is another big one. In California, PG&E has an on-bill financing program, which is very popular. It's a 0% interest loan for energy efficiency projects that gets paid off by the energy savings on your bill. So if a customer does a project and wants to do on-bill financing, at the completion of the project, theoretically cut a check for the entire project cost, and the energy savings difference would be paying down that bill at 0% interest. So the loan is almost like an incentive. It's very popular right now with PG&E, and that OBF, on-bill financing program, can be with or without an incentive. Some different rules and requirements related to whether or not it's with an incentive, but can be with both. And then obviously we qualify and deliver financial incentives. One of the biggest bonuses for customers is, outside of the technical support, is just doing the financial incentive sides of things. So rebates, prescriptive rebates, customized incentives for electric and gas. An example might be like we recently did a greenhouse lighting project with controls. It was about a 1.2 gig saving project. About 150,000 incentive in that case, and it was about a 1-year payback. So there could be some pretty large incentives, like up in several $100,000 for customers for going with, say, a lighting example. And then, like we mentioned too, the on-bill financing, that financing is up to $4 million per customer site SAID account with that 0% interest. So, and there's also alternative financing options available as well. For some reason, the customer might not qualify for on-bill financing. Next slide, please. So once again, our major services kind of highlighted here. I listed our San Francisco office address. On the bottom, agenergysavings.com, agenergysavings.com. That's our program website. My name and contact information is there. Andrew Gustafson, I'm the program manager. If there's any questions or comments after this, feel free to reach out either through a website or directly to me with the contact information here. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Our next speaker, Martin Root from National Grid.
Good afternoon, and thank you. As Enrico mentioned, my name is Martin Hudi from National Grid. We here at National Grid have a little different business model where we have dedicated sales personnel and engineers to help customers like yourselves to implement energy efficiency measures. We do hire third-party engineering firms to help us out with more difficult or challenging or exciting type projects and help ferret out those savings. Next slide, please. Here's the map of our service territory. As you can see, we kind of are adjacent to NYSEG and RG&E's territory. We do have both electric and gas in the dark blue shade area. We have also we also serve a majority of the Massachusetts state, and we serve gas in the Long Island territory. As I mentioned, we have dedicated sales personnel as well as engineers that cover all that throughout our territory, support our salespeople in our channel sales force. Next slide, please. Similar to Lucas, we have both prescriptive and custom. I'll just mention a couple of these prescriptive measures because at this time, these are more dedicated to a smaller offering and to smaller greenhouses, but they're predetermined, they're a fixed amount. You send in your application along with some invoicing, and then you receive your predetermined incentive by times the number of light fixtures. Next slide, please. The majority of our CAE projects or greenhouse or controlled environment, agriculture environment projects follow in the custom program. And here we look at the incentive is based on the kWh saved, the therm saved, the project cost, and the measured life. We've done numerous projects similar to the other two gentlemen, lighting and lighting control, VFDs for controlling exhaust fans, chillers, process, pretty much anything that can save electricity or gas. And there's a link for our custom application at our National Grid website. Next slide, please. I'll give you a couple of highlights of a couple of the projects that we worked on recently. These are lighting and lighting controls. It was a greenhouse here in Western New York. It had a lighting and controls with over an $86,000 incentive on a $253,000 project cost. So it was a pretty good percentage of the total project. There was a hydroponic greenhouse in Central New York where we had a lighting project, and we were able to offer an incentive of over $81,000 on a $345,000 project cost. Again, these fall in our custom program where we do some analysis to establish the savings and help work with you, the customers, on determining and how to maximize the savings as well as the incentive. Next slide, please. As well as lighting, we do custom electric and gas. And these are some, I'm sorry, this is, again, here we did an incentive for ventilation fans for a local greenhouse, and that paid out over $3,000 for the installation of about 20 fans and controls. Here are some non-electric measures that we were able to help out with. We were fortunate enough to work on a project. There were thermal curtains that helped insulate the glass and retain some of the heat. That project had an over $66,000 incentive on a $178,000 project, and I believe that was only one of 8 phases. So that was a real huge project for both the customer and ourselves. And some anti-fog greenhouse fabric, which enhanced the thermal properties of the glass itself. And on that one, we were able to incentivize $15,000 on a $117,000 project cost. And one of the coolest projects that I had the opportunity to be involved with, but not directly help review, was a robotic process improvement one, where we were working with the customer and they improved their yield from the covered surfaces by eliminating some of the areas that were required for the humans to go in and take care of the plants and harvest them. We were able to improve the productivity and reduce the cost per pound of produce grown. And we were able to offer an incentive of over $134,000 on almost a $500,000 project. Next slide, please. Along with those measures that I talked about, we do have some prescriptive refrigeration, as well as we do custom for cold storage facilities. And we've done several projects with ammonia systems in their chillers. Next slide, please. Here's a little flow chart on how we process the information in the application. You submit an application to us just with a brief description, and those you can find online again at nationalgrid.com. We go out and do a pre-inspection, and those again are National Grid people. We review your selected equipment and they help determine the energy savings. We offer you a offer letter which locks in your funds and your incentive. We do a post-inspection once the project is all done, just to verify that everything was installed as we all agreed upon, and then you'll receive your check. Next slide, please. In summary here, you know, what other savings are there other than energy? We try to look at, excuse me, how to help you save water, for example, and help you to justify the expenditures, and can the process equipment be made safer or upgrade? Is it doing the right thing? You know, saving energy and reducing your cost is helping your bottom line as well as your neighbors. And please don't be afraid to ask us whenever, if you have any questions or any ideas to us first, and we are here for you, here with you, here for you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Marty. Well, thanks all the panelists, Martin, Andrew, Lucas. What I would like to do now, let me move the screen. So I'll stop sharing the screen so everybody can see the participants a little bit bigger, and maybe go through a few topics, interesting topics that we can guide the discussion with the audience here. It seems, that's my impression, and it'd be great to hear from the three of you, that we never had so many incentives as we have now, right? All the 2 coasts here, there's so many programs, opportunities are increasing. We see more and more the utility companies creating ag programs, having the custom programs, like you said, the prescriptive programs have been in place for a while. And now with the custom, we can help you, being very flexible to help growers to acquire those rebates, install energy efficient technologies and become more efficient. So we're talking before this call here. It seems it's the best place now, is the best time to acquire those rebates. Could the three of you talk a little bit about that? Would you agree with me that it has never been so many incentives, and why is this a good time for growers and manufacturers to come knock at your door and say, hey, what are the programs that you have? How can I acquire some of those? Can you help me to make my operation more energy use efficient? Any one of you wants to start on this topic?
Yeah, sure. I agree. The rebates are really high right now. Speaking on behalf of the NYSEG and RG&E territories, the rebates that we're offering this year are higher than they've ever been, which is a change in the trend. You know, typically you see rebates reducing as technology becomes more available and more affordable. This past year, we increased our lighting rebates significantly, especially for small businesses, and our custom rates continue to stay high. So now is a good time as far as the rates are concerned. And there might be even more reason to choose to pursue these incentives now. And I think that's possibly going to be related to some of the regulations that are coming down the pipe for New York State.
Yeah, it's Mandy here. From California's perspective, the last few years, maybe it's more than a few years now, but there's a major shift in California to industry standard practice with customers in the state. So the utilities out here are really not wanting. I mean, the purpose is not to provide incentives for projects or provide incentives for projects that customers might have already been wanting to do to begin with. So as measures become more adopted and more utilized in the state, they eventually become standard practice and they get off the table for be able to qualify for incentives. So at least here in California, right now is a good time for greenhouse lighting specifically, because it's there's still opportunities to secure those incentives. It's not LED is still relatively new in the growing sector that we're at least here in California for greenhouses, but there are changes coming to like Title 24 code requirements in California, and also just higher level standard practice requirements that the CPUC works to determine, which limits incentives available. So yeah, good opportunity now, especially because we're seeing a trend towards maybe next year onward that a lot of the incentives that are available could be much more greatly reduced in the coming years due to the adoption of those type of technologies and just general standard practice trends with the industry.
Great. So
Yeah, I have to agree with both Lucas and Andrew. Now is the opportunity to submit your projects. We'll work with you as early as possible to help guide you and review the options to bring you the best savings and therefore the highest incentive rates. And as Lucas mentioned, there could be some regulatory guidelines brought to here in New York State, which may kind of define what a baseline is, and which may limit what we can offer then as a savings forward in the future.
Yeah, one other thing related, kind of similar related, is program influence. So if a customer comes to us, at least here in California programs, a customer comes to us with an upgrade they're planning to do where they want to secure incentives for it, that often is not allowed. We have to be able to show that we're incentivizing and motivating a customer to go to something they wouldn't have already considered. So like mentioned, the importance of being involved early on in the decision-making process of a project is key. If someone's set on already doing something, it's often could disqualify the project. So early intervention, being able to establish the influence of the program, especially here in California, is very, very important.
Yeah, that'll be definitely the next topic, Andrew. But just before we change gears to the next one, so if I got it right, as more growers adopt energy efficient technologies and as the standards become effective, less going to be the opportunities for rebates. Is that right? Is that what the three of you said? So that's why it's important for growers to come as soon as possible. So if they want to do, don't waste time. Do now, because it seems from now on it's going to be less and less, right, with the regulations and standards and just more people adopt. Perfect. So Andrew, to your point, and that'll be the next one, and we can go back to something that Lucas mentioned at the beginning as well, the pre-approval. So Lucas mentioned the pre-approval. Andrew, you mentioned about getting involved early, and Martin put a nice diagram on the process to get the rebates. So the first thing, if someone wants to do any project, they pick up the phone and they're going to talk to you right now before, installing something or before doing something. Otherwise, they can lose the opportunity to get the rebate and the financial incentive. Is that right? And can the two of you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we always recommend coming to us before the project is while it's in the design phase, before it's installed, just so there's a clear understanding up front what the rebates are, what they're for, how do they affect the project. For our program, we have two specific paths. If you're installing a prescriptive measure, what we call prescriptive or pre-qualified rebate with one of those predetermined dollar amounts, we're making a lot of assumptions on the savings on the back end, so you don't have to apply in advance. If you've installed those within the past year, I would say you can apply for an incentive today even. And might be specific to the NYSEG in RG&E territories, because all programs run a little bit differently. But what you mentioned regarding pre-approval is certainly the case for custom. So when we're looking at custom rebates, which are paid out on a performance basis, we do require pre-approval, which is a desk review, engineering desk review before the construction begins, so that we can calculate and quantify the savings and provide that rebate estimate before construction begins. That reservation letter in hand can go a long way when you're looking to secure financial funding too. So pre-approval is always an option, even for prescriptive. So if you're going to pursue prescriptive rebates and you want pre-approval, so we can issue that letter, sometimes that goes a long way to help kickstart a project.
Yeah, California is similar too. We have a set list of, we develop work papers to have predetermined deemed rebate prescriptive measures for that can be processed with just a copy of an invoice within, like with a PG&E at 60 days of installation or when it's operational. So we can do those in the post. We also very similar with needing as far as getting a pre-approval for custom incentive, which is a majority of the larger energy saving projects. We need that pre-approval. And with California, it even goes a step prior where not just pre-installation, but pre-decision-making processes where we need to show that influence. So that's the key point for us, is even before installation begins, we need to be involved to help guide the customer to the, where the benefit is, and help show the benefits of the program and incentive to help them motivate them to go that direction. So for us, the earlier we can get involved with custom incentive projects, the better to have a successful project.
And I should correct something I said. I think I said the past year. What I meant to say was within the past 90 days of the calendar year. So thank you for that opportunity to correct that.
Perfect. One question here. I think I would like to ask how can growers maximize their benefits? It seems what both of you just said, the earlier they get in touch with you, so it seems what you're saying here, you can help them maximize. Is that right? Because you're going to help them understand the savings, identify opportunities, prioritize. Can we say that? So in order to maximize benefits, one of the things would be get in touch with you as soon as possible. And if he has something else that they can do?
Yeah. I mean, one example could be like doing a lighting upgrade for a greenhouse. Often customers might just looking at the lighting fixture, but we would recommend, say, like a dimming controls capability or daylight integrals or something. And then you get a much more substantial amount of savings tied to that. So yeah, we like, if we get involved in the design stage or conceptual stage, we can help guide the customers to other measures or opportunities they might not have originally considered to get those added benefits.
Yeah, and our program's similar. While we don't require pre-approval for some prescriptive measures, there is some eligibility criteria that you have to kind of be aware of. So getting a hold of us early on is helpful for eligibility. We can, like Andrew suggested, potentially add value by finding more opportunities to leverage other rebates or other technologies, or suggest other ideas that might not have originally been in the scope. So I would agree that design stage is a perfect time to get the rebate company involved.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, exactly. I just want to iterate that as well. We love to be involved in the design process. If you're thinking of a good example is model ABC has such a fixed savings based on our analysis, but model EF is more, so more, we can save a lot more. We love to encourage our customers to go with their more efficient piece of equipment because we're here to save energy and costs for you as well as for New York State, because we all have high goals in New York State. Again, the key is to really get involved early, talk to the engineering firms, fully understand what the project entails and how we can help maximize both the savings and the incentive.
Yeah, and a big part too is the technical services side of these programs too. So we're we don't cost the customer anything in our program. We've got engineers here to help with different parts of the project to help maximize benefits to the customer. So we often get leaned on for the support for a customer going through, or maybe a customer is like weary of a technology or is a little uncertain or doesn't know what to do. I mean, like with our program, we're vendor neutrals, but we could provide and guide customers towards a direction that we think might give them some good benefits. So outside of the incentives, cutting an incentive check, I mean, there's other services too at no cost that could really benefit customers as well.
It seems, just to confirm here, that all those processes, there is no cost for the grower, right? To do those energy rebates, energy incentives, helping them to calculate. Is there any upfront cost for the grower or no?
Not on my end, no. No cost to include us in these conversations, and in applying for rebates is also not a commitment to do the project. So if you're looking for an estimate and you want to know how installing technology A versus technology B affects your project, you can get us involved. We can help with the savings, and the rebate kind of affects that incremental cost. And if it isn't a good economic fit for your goals on the project, then it's not a commitment to talk to us either. So win-win.
Great. All right. One quick question here, because we do have maybe half of our audience is normally manufacturers. So we cover a lot of things through the grower's point of view. Through the manufacturer point of view, I have a quick question here. All of you mentioned the prescriptive rebates, in which you know exactly what the technology can offer. They just get it, and you can recommend growers some of those solutions. So as a manufacturer, let's say I am a LED lighting manufacturer. Do I need to get my product qualified and certified by your companies in order to get those rebates, or are you giving rebates based on the LED technology itself? So let's say if the grower adopt an LED lighting technology, automatically gets the rebates, or then one time they get this approval, then you also have to look into brand, model, and things like that. I don't want to use any names here. It's just theoretical. Do the company need to be pre-approved by you, or just being an LED lighting technology already gets them, already allow them to receive their products to receive the rebate and be installed at the grower's facility?
I can speak to that from our program's perspective. We rely heavily on guidelines provided by the DLC, the Design Light Consortium. We internally do not pre-approve any specific equipment. You don't need to be on our list. The vendor does not have to be on our list. So we don't have any requirements like that internally. We do reference the DLC for all of our prescriptive lighting rebates that pertain to space lighting, area lighting, exterior lighting. If we're talking about grow lights, the horticultural LED list on the DLC's website isn't exactly robust enough for us to want to mandate being on the DLC's QPL or their qualified products list. So we do reference their requirements. So my advice to an LED manufacturer is look at the listing requirements from the DLC, and then show us a spec sheet that shows how you meet similar requirements. for efficacy and PPF and whatnot.
Yeah, in California, there's also there's like a qualified products list where we also work through the DLC as well. There's a lot of new LED technologies out there for growing applications, so not all of them. What I would say is for PG&E, there's a process to get a fixture approved through a testing procedure if they're not quite on that list yet. So there is a mechanism to be able to offer fixtures outside of what might be on that qualified list, but there are, as mentioned just earlier, requirements in a list that utilities try to follow.
Yeah, same from we totally encourage their fixtures DLC approved. Reason being, we like to be assured that if we're incentivizing these types of fixtures, that we know that they're going to last, and that's one way of validating that the equipment is good. I remember in the early days it was the Wild West in LED, and we had some and other people do some early failures where we didn't the list that we expected. As Lucas mentioned, the DLC horticultural lid is not quite there yet. So we look at the performance of these factors. We're not trying to limit in a way what the customers is choosing or plans to use, but we just want to make sure and validate that what our purchasing will last as we anticipate.
Perfect. Martin, let me recommend you one thing. When you had your video off, your voice was better. Your voice is very choppy now. I think we got what you said now. If you prefer to turn off your video, yeah, I'll make sure every question, I'll make sure I check on you before I change the question. I'm going to be able to hear you better, which is the important thing is the information. So let's take a look at some questions here that we received. There are two questions I think very, very convenient here. The first one is, do those incentives also apply to new builds or only on existing facility improvements? Well, to the three of you. So let's do the same order as doing right now. So Lucas, if you want to start, go through Andrew and then through Martin.
Yes, the incentives are available for both retrofit on existing buildings and available for new construction.
How do you do then? So just a quick question. If it's for a new building, if it's an existing one, you go there, you do an analysis, you have a baseline, and you know how much they can save. For a new building, what is your starting point?
Yeah, so it depends on the technology, I suppose. For prescriptive measures, again, we're assuming a baseline, yes, an industry standard or minimally compliant type of equipment as the baseline. For custom, and this is where there's a little bit of strategy involved, and why it's good to get us involved early. The baseline for new construction is always going to be hypothetical. So if we're looking at exterior material options for a greenhouse, we have a lot of flexibility now. And we mentioned code and regulations and how that might be coming for New York. It might be good to circle back to that before the call's done, because I think that there's an emphasis there. But with our custom option, there's a lot of flexibility to say what the baseline reasonably could be. If you're looking at inflated exterior with a plastic inflated shell, your baseline might be a single layer poly. But if you're going for a more rigid plastic, dual layer material, single layer poly might not be the correct baseline. So we take some common sense into the analysis, but we also look at code where it becomes applicable. Because there isn't a lot of code for greenhouses right now, we do have a lot of flexibility with our custom program. So that hypothetical baseline is relevant to what you're doing, the scale of the project, and what some of the industry standards might be for the time.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, it's offered in California. You can get incentives for new construction or added load projects. I would say it's typical that in that scenario, we would have a baseline. I mean, it's not unusual to have like two sets of quotes, like a customer was looking at, just an example, like this type of equipment. So say it's like HPS lighting or something. I mean, they have that quote of what they're doing, and then we use that. If that's what their initial intent was, we'd use that as the baseline and model it and determine, based on light level requirements, like what we might need for the LED one, and then we base that off. So that would be the baseline there. So yeah, it kind of goes back to what the customer was planning to do, or if not available, industry standard practice requirements that might be in place for that type of measure.
Thanks, Andrew. Marty.
Yes, same here. We both can look at the retrofitting of buildings, greenhouses, as well as new construction. And as Lucas mentioned, it's involved early key, so we can understand what your requirements and what your criteria are for your growing needs. For example, what type of lighting and how we can help and establish a reasonable baseline to compare the more efficient products against. It gets interesting and challenging at times because as I've been learning over the years that people have different recipes on how they want to grow their vegetables or their cannabis, and trying to understand how they plan on doing it and the methods they're doing it with and the different technologies, and then trying to establish a alternative baseline has always been very interesting and challenging.
Yeah, I wanted to also, I think I forgot to mention also the code requirements too. I think someone else might have mentioned that, but that's also an important part of that. And like with greenhouses, there's a shift to more strict standards for greenhouses coming, I think, next year. So those constantly, go up over the years as things evolve, and the markets change, or get more adopted. So outside of standard practice, there's also obviously the code requirements and stuff in place on what could be the claimable savings for the project.
Andrew, I have a question for you. Does California have requirements right now for lighting power density in greenhouses?
So yeah, they do. They're different values based on. So if a customer, I guess it could be a scenario. So like if the customer doesn't really have an established baseline or an existing fixture that we can compare it to. Recently, I think it was like a 1.8, I think, or 1.85 micromoles per joule requirement for lighting that we'd be using for that baseline, if nothing else to compare it to. And then as an example, like with the Title 24 changes that are coming in, all the horticultural lamps, that's bumping up to like 1.9 next year. So there's different, there are set requirements, and they are getting more strict as like we mentioned, like with the changing coming to efficiency requirements next year.
Sure. Yeah, this kind of circles back to the topic that we discussed in the beginning of the call. But right now there isn't a lot of requirements for New York State growers, and it might be worth referencing what's happening in California in Title 24 and looking down the road to see what New York might be doing. I'm a fan of increasing the requirements for efficiency as on a whole, but right now we're in a a unique time where there isn't any code requirements for lighting in greenhouses or HVAC systems in greenhouses, barely any for the building envelope. So that gives us tons of flexibility, especially in the custom program, to say, hey, what are you doing right now versus what could you be doing? Because once code becomes adopted in New York and written, then that's the baseline, and you can't get an incentive to install baseline equipment.
Yeah, I mean, example could be outside of growing. I mean, just LEDs in general in California are being rebated less and less with utilities because they consider them being more adopted now. So
right,
yeah, it happens, and like mentioned, I know we keep saying it, but it really is true. At some point there'll be less claimable savings and less incentives and rebates available for these types of opportunities we're discussing here, as they could become more standard in the sector. So yeah, all things to consider, and reasons to explore these type of upgrades.
That's very interesting. Yeah, to see this dynamic market and how things are evolving, and they're evolving fast. So great to have those conversations now. One other question that I have here, the question was specific about, so let me read the question, but I will expand on the question, which is gas and ethanol from plants, sugarcane, for example, potential cost-effective source of energy for CEA purposes? So to expanding this question, regarding the utility companies and the rebate programs, is anything related to the use of renewable source of energy? I think everything you mentioned so far is increasing energy use efficiency, but not really the source of the energy. So is there any programs that look into the renewables or storage or anything like that outside of energy use efficiency?
Right now in New York, biogas projects like that fall into a crack where there isn't a lot being offered. New York State as a whole is moving towards renewables like solar primarily, not as much in biogases, and the utility companies haven't quite caught up to cover that gap. So right now the NYSEG RG&E program doesn't offer incentives for on-site generation. I assume that ethanol is used to create electricity, but I suppose it could be used for heating. So it's kind of on a case-by-case basis, I suppose. In general, on-site generation doesn't have a lot of opportunity right now. And NYSERDA is not doing a lot with on-site generation either, unless it's solar or a heat pump type project, but that's not generation. If it's used for heating purposes, if you're burning ethanol to heat instead of natural gas, that could potentially be considered under the custom program.
Andrew, anything in California related to that?
There's some requirements and policies in place regarding the fuel switching, things like that with the utilities, but like largely are the retrofit program, like the program that we're talking about here for PG&E, there's other resources at the utility to help incentivize for generation type projects, but it falls outside of our program, except for the where it might be related to demand side management type activities. I mean, we do have a component of our program to help support that. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future, you know, there's a stronger push to general decarbonization type on the larger level here in California. So there might be some more opportunities coming in the future as well. But yeah, not a lot directly with our program right now on the generation side of things.
Martin, anything with National Grid?
Yeah, we're a similar situation where we're concentrating on energy efficiency right now. We're experimenting with of on-site generation. I know I think there's a program downstage of injecting hydrogen into our gas pipelines to help reduce some emissions, and is also working with some gas generation, trying to inject that into our gas pipes. But mainly right now we're focusing on the energy efficiency portion and reducing load.
Marty, to clarify, National Grid's not doing on-site generation rebates for on-site?
Yeah, we are not doing
Okay.
incentive on-site generation.
All right. So we are getting close to the end here. We have 4 more minutes. I think we got through the questions. Maybe there's one more question here. Let me read that one. As you say, rebates are going to be reducing number based on rebates given. Is it the number of rebate claims that reduce this, or the total dollar figure that is driven the future attenuation of the rebate programs for LEDs? For instance, are the large farms, like some examples here, indoor farms, Plenty, Aero Farms, the large indoor farms, taking up more of the rebate dollars than are available, and therefore smaller startups will have a harder time in future years? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think I understand the question. I don't think it is in that case. For NYSEG and RG&E, we set goals at the beginning of the year, and there's a fixed amount. That's true. We almost never run out of rebate money. So as rebates, when we talk about rebates reducing, going down year over year, we're talking about the savings opportunity. Primarily, the opportunity for savings is going down because code is becoming more strict. The opportunities, the low-hanging fruit opportunities have been taken advantage of. So as the savings opportunity goes down, in kind, the incentives will be reduced because incentives, the purpose is to drive a customer to make a decision from a standard efficiency to a high efficiency. So if high efficiency is the standard, that opportunity is going down, and so are the rebates. As far as budgets go, I can say that our budgets are listed. I think they're available on our website. You can see where we're at, what we've spent, and some customers do take up a large amount of the pot, but we rarely run out of money. And it's usually not big farms that are taking those big dents out either, because agriculture is kind of grouped with the rest of the CNI, commercial industrial grouping.
Great. That's good news. Well, we're getting close to the time here. I have 2 more minutes. So I want to thank the 3 of you for joining the roundtable today. Thank the audience for staying with us. And any final comments from the 3 of you? Let's do the other way around now. Let's start with Marty. Marty, any final comments?
No, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And it was great discussion. I'd love to hear what the other utilities are doing. Here in New York, we've got extremely exciting opportunities with cannabis opening up to the growers, controlled agricultural environment. Lots of opportunities, and we'd love to help you grow New York and prosper. Thank you again.
Andrew?
Yeah, no, same thing. Thanks again for having me. It was great to get a different perspective on other utilities across the US, like how things are operating and how things differ. So it's great to be part of that. I'd love to contribute more in the future if when available. And if anyone has any questions that we could help answer, if you're in California or otherwise on our incentive programs, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to discuss and see how we can help you.
Lucas?
Yeah, likewise, happy to be part of today's conversation. Thanks, Erico, for the invite. If there are any utility customers on the call, feel free to reach out to us directly. If you're a manufacturer, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to help and look at these projects with you.
Fantastic. We did got one last question here. We don't have to answer now, but it's someone looking for assistance to fill those forms and find the best opportunities. So in general, I think the 3 of you said, right, get in contact with you. We can share the contacts if that's okay. You can just share the 3 emails from the 3 of you.
Yeah.
Credentials.
Oh, absolutely.
Please do.
With the audience. So then, yeah, for the one person that is asking, share that and for everyone on the call as well. But I think we're very clear, right? The message is contact them. go after the opportunities, and they're here to help. So
yes, exactly. We're here to help.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everyone again. Haley, thanks for introducing everybody. Marty, Lucas, Andrew, thanks for participating. Thanks everybody in the audience for staying with us. The nice questions, and we hope to see you again in 1 month at the next webinar. Thanks everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Take
Have a
care.
good afternoon.
Bye.